Excellent, and we're live.
Fabulous.
So I'll let you do your bits and pieces. Welcome if you're joining us. Sarah's just going to do a bit of tech stuff behind the scenes, linking it up to her Facebook page. So while she's doing that, I'm just going to have a little chat with you. So welcome. Hope you're all having a good day, good week. Today's topic, Sarah and I are going to be talking about those fireworks and Halloween. I know fireworks is a really emotive topic. I know that in an ideal world, many of us would wish that they didn't exist, but sadly they do. So while they do, we're going to give you some top tips to help and support your dog in that situation. So it looks like Sarah's good to go. So I'm going to let Sarah introduce herself, then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll dive straight in and give you some hints and tips from the office.
Now, doesn't it seem funny that we're talking about fireworks when it was 19 degrees yesterday and it felt like summer and I was walking around in a t-shirt?
I've realised that nearly every live we do, we seem to talk about the weather.
I know. And the bizarre thing is, when we did one, so the first one we did actually was 2022, and we thought it was time that we did another one, and the weather was glorious then in 2022. It's just so funny, isn't it? But so I'm Sarah from Barkshire Dog Training. I'm based in Reading, and I support owners from 8-week-old puppies through their adult life, and I specialise in predation behaviour. So that's where your dog might like to chase a squirrel or a rabbit, and you want to have a better recall and understanding why they may or may not want to come back to you when there's something with a fluffy tail on. So yeah, that's me.
And if you don't know me, I'm Claire. I run Sighthounds. So in Sighthounds, we only work with sighthounds, with ex-racing greyhounds being a specialist area within that, based in the Midlands, but I also work with people online all over the country as well. So Sarah, fireworks and Halloween, should we start off with the big one? Start off with the fireworks.
Well, literally, no pun intended, eh?
So yeah, it's a really tricky subject, isn't it? It's a really one that's really emotive. Part of the reason Sighthounds exists was because of my lovely Oscar, who was a big inspiration behind this, and seeing him so stressed and worried about fireworks. And I know it's such a sensitive subject for so many people, and I really can sort of empathize with that and relate to it. So I think one of the things I wanted to talk about a bit was some of the stuff that we maybe understood about fireworks before we were dog trainers, before we had this knowledge and understanding that we do now. There's so many kind of myths out there of what you should and shouldn't be doing, and I thought we could maybe start chatting about those.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was very fortunate. Most of my dogs have not had a problem, but actually I've had the experience of them developing a problem because of, local people setting off fireworks that we didn't expect and things, and it just takes that one time that can impact our dog's well-being, can't it, and their response to it, and stuff. But I haven't been to a fireworks display for a long time because it does feel very conflicted in some ways, doesn't it? In that sense. And I know that some shops actually do the quiet ones, don't they now?
Yes, that is getting more popular. Hopefully that continues to be
predominantly the noise, isn't it, that we think is the problem. But I know, I've just gone out, I've just left the dog. I've not even had a thought when I was, younger, in my previous years before I became a dog trainer. I was like, no, my dog's fine. They shouldn't be a worry. And maybe when I went out, they were fine. And when I came back, they were fine. But actually, if I was with them during that period of time, I might have seen something very, very different. And would I have recognized the signals that the dog was giving to me? Maybe they were pacing or breathing heavily, or, maybe they just took themselves away. And I'd be like, I wouldn't have connected the dots, to be honest, Claire. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think I may have missed in the past.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Kind of reading your dog and understanding what's normal for them. And I think, again, like you say, there can be these extremes of dogs with fireworks, and Oscar was one of those extremes. He had the situation where he was like shaking, dribbling, trembling, really horrific. It would be, there was no way you could have missed that kind of thing. But then I have reflected on some of my other dogs where, like you say, there's some of those more subtle symptoms, subtle signs that they're just not as comfortable. I think one of the big ones for me when Oscar was in a real state was, at the time there was so much conflicting information about there, like don't fuss your dog when they're stressed, because you'll reinforce the behavior. You'll make them know that it's a good idea to be this stressed, so you mustn't be making a fuss of them, you mustn't reassure them, you mustn't kind of do that. And obviously that is not the case at all. You really want to be there for your dogs. You've got this, everything we both do as trainers, we're both so passionate about that connection with humans and dogs have with each other and that relationship. And then if they're in their moment in need and you're just going, no, I'm going to ignore you, you need to cope with this, it must be so confusing for them to do that. And as I say, I still see a lot of those kind of that conflicting information out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's really difficult, isn't it? You can't undo what you didn't know then.
Yes, no. So it's not a place of judgment at all.
No, not at all. And so the purpose of us getting together again, and people can obviously watch the live that was done in 2022 on our YouTube channels. But we wanted to, we're always discovering new things, aren't we? We're always learning, which is why we love what we do. And we just, we just want to make sure that we're still imparting the right bit of knowledge, and that we want to get out there that there is no judgment, and you do what you felt was right at the time. But I have to, just a bit of a side to you, I work with quite a lot of small dogs compared to you, Claire, which most of them are giants, aren't they, in the dog world. You may offer to do this, but it might be less practical, where a small dog often feels a little bit worried about life. And so I often get asked by owners and say, I pick my dog up, and the looks I get from people or the comments and stuff, because they're scared. Well, but I'm on the theory, well, yeah, of course you would do, because if your dog is scared, you want to protect them and look after them. I mean, you can't maybe do that with a greyhound as easy, but there's that misconception, isn't there, that I wouldn't do that. So there's so many myths and weird stuff out there that we're trying to explain and understand, and this is one of them. You want to look after your doggies in this time, with Diwali coming up on the 20th of October. It's really early this year, it's sometimes after fireworks, but so we wanted to get ahead of the game and get that out there, didn't we?
Yeah. So I think the other thing you were talking about earlier was you reading the signs of your dogs. Going back to this kind of comforting your dogs, it's important to understand what your dog likes as a form of comfort and what's right for your dog. Because if I look back, and again, as part of the prep for this, I was looking at the one we did in 2022, and bless him, at the time I had Oscar and Belle, so a lot of my conversations were around Oscar and Belle, and now I've got Izzy and Freddie, who are very different characters. But for example, Oscar would definitely want me next to him, but he wouldn't want contact. Belle would just want to be in a room with me. Freddie would want to be physically in contact somehow. He wouldn't want to be fussed. He'd like to have his body down the side of my leg or wrapped up in my legs with a blanket on him. So he would definitely, if he's worried, or even if he's not, he just loves to be in contact, but he doesn't like being fussed. Whereas Izzy will properly pour for more. She's like, come on, get on it. I want more attention. I want more attention. And so each one of those dogs in a state when they're worried, it's about handling that right. So for example, if I took Belle, if I'd gone up and started giving Belle a massive fuss, that would have been even more stressful for her. So reading the dogs and actually understanding whether they like that fuss and contact and doing what's right for them can be really important as well, I think, as rather than just comfort your dog. Sometimes we comfort as in hug and kisses, and for some dogs that could be overwhelming as well. So it's tapping into whatever's right for your particular
100% agree, because Man is Mr. Independent, and he'll just he'll respond a little bit to fireworks now. We've managed to do a lot of conditioning work to help him, which we're going to go into. But Poppy, she sometimes she'll snuggle, sometimes she doesn't. So depending on how she's feeling, very much will depend on how I respond and look after her. But I actually look forward to fireworks night in some ways, because I get to snuggle and do fun stuff with my dog. It's a good excuse to get popcorn out and then really play a really loud movie, but I'm jumping ahead, Claire.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So should we kind of start back at the beginning and some of the stuff to kind of be aware of now and in the early stages and start to get prepared for?
100%.
So one of the things that we talk about, and this ties very closely with, we know a lot of dogs like their routines. And what I think sometimes we can do, especially our ex-racing greyhounds, some of those absolutely adore their routines. And we talk about doing all this stuff to support your dogs. And what I was guilty of in the past is like come the 4th of December or whenever they sort of December, November, whenever they started, suddenly everything could be different. So we're doing earlier walks, we're doing, everything's like changed in the house, there's different music playing, everything's gone odd to begin with. And really, if we can lead into that, it's much better for our dogs. Now, I know life happens and sometimes it's not entirely practical, but the more we can do to lead in will be better. So if we say you really want to be walking your dog in daylight hours, you don't want to be walking them in the dark around kind of any kind of fireworks season. But if your routine is that you're walking the dogs in the dark, ideally like moving it 5 or 10 minutes forward over a few days or a few weeks, rather than suddenly going, oh, they walked at 6 o'clock and now I'm going to walk you at 3 o'clock. That would be quite a big change for them. So where we can make shifts gradually, that's really important to start doing from now.
Yeah, and respectfully, we know, you know, a lot of people are back in the office now. Back in 2022, that was, you know, still something that wasn't happening as regularly. So we do understand that people may be, you know, are in the office now, so that does, you know, prove a challenge. But I do think there is, you know, our dogs can tell the time, and they don't, like you say, the routine. So I think, like you said, trying to bring it back a little bit earlier, you know, get members of the family and friends involved if they can, just to support them. Because, you know, I mean, I know there are some idiots out there that decide to throw fireworks off at any time of the day. So we can't predict that. But what we're doing is just trying to mitigate the situation, to be out and about when there are the loud sounds, the smell, which is really important, isn't it, Claire? The smell of the firework can have a real impact on our dog's sense of well-being, and the sparkles, as I called it in 2022. You know, the actual sign and etc. Yeah, you know, is all of those 3 elements that are, you know, can be triggering for dogs.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, as you say, like some people's lifestyles, it's not practical to not have those change the times because of work and things like that. But if you're planning on sometimes around firework night, you don't want to necessarily be walking your dog. We've done lots about not walking your dog every day if it's not necessary. But if you're in a routine where you walk your dog regularly, maybe taking a couple of days a week from now where you do enrichment games instead of that evening walk, you do a morning walk maybe, and then enrichment games on the evening. So they're starting to get used to a routine that a walk isn't something I have to do every single day, twice a day. And we did a great live with Nikki, didn't we? French, talking about don't walk your dogs, and that's available on the YouTube to go back to, and some of the enrichment side of things. And again, 100%. That's very, very much a human thing where we go, oh, we have to walk our dogs twice a day because that's what makes us good pet parents, but good pet guardians. But that's not always the case. So getting some of those games in now can be really, really valuable.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, I was only talking to Nikki about it and telling her about our live tonight. So I said, you know, it'd be a good idea to share that, because you know, we can forget what those games might look like. Yeah, if we're not doing them all the time. And there's, you know, lots of nose work I think we would recommend, wouldn't we, generally?
Definitely.
Because sniffing, licking, you know, all of that provides that calming environment, etc. So cardboard boxes, you know, lick mats, snuffle balls, etc., rolled up tea towels, you know, all sorts of things that you know, that you think and know that your dog enjoys. And if you get stuck at all, go and have a look at the live with Nikki. But we've also got a number of videos, haven't we, on YouTube about enrichment, and I know we've written some blogs about it as well. So, you know, there's lots of information in addition to this live tonight that people can go and find and resource and ask us questions, can't they?
Definitely. So so changing the routine, and the other thing with that is changes that we're making is also considering the beds. I know your beds are based near the windows, so I know you move them into the rooms a little bit more, and doing that step by step, not just it's November the 5th, let's pull the beds into a completely different position. So moving them around a lot. Also, it's recognizing, if you're anything like me and you've got a little bit of a bed addiction for dogs, by far too many. But we've got several beds around our house, and I'm always a big fan in multi-dog households having a lot more beds than you have got dogs for that very reason. But I found that my dogs, there's an area in our kitchen where there was once a unit that isn't there anymore. There was an appliance that isn't there. And every one of my dogs that I've adopted, when they've been unsure or unwell or something's not been quite, they've all gravitated to this bed. So it's under a worktop, it's kind of tucked away. And that has always been a safe bed for my dogs. And I think if your dog has got a certain bed and you are going to be putting, or a crate that they go in, and you're potentially going to be putting blankets over the crates, or you're going to be covering or making a safe space, it's looking at the areas where your dog kind of goes to and feels comfortable. And so for me, when fireworks were going on, I know, like when I had Oscar, if he was unsure, would go to that bed. So I needed to consider how I was setting up that room to make sure I could support him in that room. So like having like music in that room, making sure the blinds were shut in that room, the curtains were shut, to try and stop, like you say, the sounds as much as we could, to kind of give that room as much comfort for him as we could.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. We live in a 3-story property, and we actually ironically go up to the top floor, because the dogs are really, because that's where we sleep, and the dogs are, encourage the dogs on the bed, and we kind of just snuggle down, and we, just kind of play some really nice music, and just kind of just be together, and it's a real comfort time, and they seem to love that, because they just really settle on the bed much more than they would do in one of their beds or on the sofa with us. So that's cool with us, and so that's what we do now with the 2 that we've got.
Yeah, Izzy and Freddie would be the same. There'd be not any chance. Freddie in bed, Izzy on the bed. They'd be very happy with that, or in the bedroom. That's kind of where they both love to go. So mine would gravitate there. But as I say, thinking ahead and making sure, if you are going to make any changes, if you do use crates, again, we've talked about crates when we were on with Gemma from the Pet Carpenter, and about the safety and how to use crates appropriately. There's stuff on there. So if you've got any doubts about that, then let us know. I think one of the things that I did want to talk about is how I think it's Steve Mann that says that emotion always trumps obedience. And it's kind of being aware of that. So some people will be in a situation where it might be, if they have a delivery, the dog is kind of hanging around the door while they're doing that, whereas you'd really want to make sure in these sort of situations that if your dog got scared in that situation, they might bolt. So we want to make sure that safety is considered, that even if you have got good obedience, you have got recall, we're not putting any sort of risks in place with that. We're being very risk averse with what we're doing to make sure that doesn't become a situation. Because as we say, Steve Mann says that obedience, emotions will always trump obedience. If they're scared, that will take over the training side of things.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you've got your dog tags are on there, you've got your lead on before you leave the house. Anything that you're just being overly cautious in your mind, but actually that caution could save your dog from bolting, and it's better to be cautious during these next few weeks. And I appreciate it can feel that it goes on a bit for a while. If you think Diwali's in 2 weeks time on the 20th, and potentially you've got fireworks on and off until the new year, that does feel like a long time. And you can't hopefully you can predict around Diwali, you can predict around New Year's Eve, and you can predict around the 5th of November. But it's just trying to think about what's going on at this time of year, and just trying to be as prepared as you possibly can.
Yeah, there's a little change. We've just returned from a holiday, and it's a small thing, but it's something that I do, that when I'm on holiday or when I've got a newly adopted dog, the tracker goes on the collar. When
Okay.
they're more established, that their tracker is on their harnesses, which I put on when we go out. But kind of, we've just been away, so it was a different environment. The fences were different to what I'm used to. There's different sights and sounds and everything else going on. So my dogs just had the trackers on the collars as opposed to the harnesses. And again, kind of, if my dogs were worried by fireworks, that would definitely be something I'd be considering, just because, again, it's one of those situations you never want to have to use it, but just having that little extra safety net can just make you feel a little bit better from that point side of things.
Yeah, because even, I mean, your greyhounds, they will run fast. I mean, God bless Manu and his short legs, but you know, if he was scared, I know he would run fast, you know, but I can't even imagine how quick your guys would run if they were scared. You know, that's a real risk.
Yeah, well, they can go like 40 miles an hour in 3
Yeah.
paces. Yeah, it's not
Close your ears, Manu.
Sorry, we don't run you.
Maybe if there was a hot dog, he might be motivated, bless him.
Oh, we love Manu. So yeah, so we've got the moving stuff. So like you say, collar and tags, and it's a legal requirement when you're out and about to have that tag on, and trackers and things like that can be really valuable, and also things like just making sure, stair gates, anything like that you're using as safety, that's all sorted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's, you know, it's interesting. Steph has made a comment, Claire, saying that they've already had fireworks going on and off over the last 2 weeks. I mean, gosh, you know, that's just really tough, isn't it? And I know a couple of my clients actually go on holiday during that time and actually take themselves off to places that are known for being so remote that they can avoid it completely. And there's actually a really good Instagram page for dogs that maybe need that level of quiet or space, actually. So I might pop it on the chat, because I think that could be quite helpful for people if they are looking for a quiet space. Because if their dog is maybe like Oscar was, you know, maybe the best thing is actually to try and remove yourself from the situation in that sense, because to make sure that, you know, the dogs don't go through that, you know, because there's only so much we can do to desensitize and cover up the noise and smell and experiences, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm the same. I've got quite a few customers that I work with who tend to go off for like New Year's and bonfires and things like that. So and just on that point of kind of counter conditioning and desensitization, which is basically changing the emotional state of how they feel about fireworks, a couple of points that I just want to make on that is, firstly, I ran a course with Becca from Behaviour by Becca earlier this year, and we're running another one next year, and that was about sound sensitivity. And one of the key things that the scientific studies have shown is that sound sensitivity and pain can be closely linked. So some dogs that have sound sensitivity, part of the feeding into that will be pain. And if you think, if they jump or tense, then and something's uncomfortable, it then hurts, and then it can kind of become like this spiral where every time they hear a noise, they tense and it hurts. So having vet checks, physiotherapists, canine massage people like that looking over your dogs and looking for pain is really important as well when it comes to
okay, that's useful to know.
And I think when it comes to kind of, we will talk a little bit about ways you can give a more positive association to activities, but it isn't a quick thing when it comes to sound sensitivity. It is something that takes a lot of work. And you have to do it over quite a period of time. So you're not necessarily going to change that emotional state in a couple of weeks. In fact, it's highly unlikely. There are things you can, everything we're talking about is safety and ways that we can make it more comfortable for our dogs than it maybe wouldn't be if we didn't do that stuff. But kind of changing that is a long process. So if you have got a dog that struggles with that, getting ahead of the game for next year would definitely be worth doing and working on it for a long time. And I did see like a huge improvement working with Oscar. As I say, 1 year he was absolutely dreadful, and that was part of what inspired everything. but by the following year, I worked really hard with him with it, and we did have him sleep through most of it, apart from a couple of loud bangs that went over the house. So I have experienced it. It is doable, but it is it's not a 2-minute fix.
Yeah. And I guess leading on from that then, Claire, you know, both of us are Pet Remedy partners, aren't we, and affiliates.
Yes.
So you can use something that can help our dogs feel calmer using their great products. So, you know, spraying stuff to go around on their beds and a bandana around their necks, you know, doing it again ahead of time. So it's not just something they're experiencing on the night, just letting them know and associate it. I have valerian tablets for Manu as well, because he used to be really quite nervy, and I'm already giving him those. So, you know, again, I'm not just going to put them in a couple of days beforehand. You need to get that supplement to be, you know, built up in the system, so that he is generally, I mean, God, you know, on walks now he's virtually going backwards instead of forwards. He's so chilled.
Oh, bless him.
I know, I really am picking on him tonight, aren't I? You know, I love him to bits. Oh dear, he's coming in for a bit of a rough ride. But yeah, so, but you know, there are some great supplements out there. You've got the, you know, the plugins from Pet Remedy. You've got some, you know, Dorwest do some good valerian. We've, you know, we're hoping to join a live next week, aren't we, about a new product called Paw Drinks, aren't we? I'm going to go along to it. So there may be some more information that we can share on that, Claire, once we've got a bit more information, because you know what us two are like. We if we sniff out a good product or something new that we think our clients will benefit from, then that's definitely something we want to find out more about. So there are things out there, aren't there, that can help.
Definitely. And as I say, Pet Remedy, and I was using Pet Remedy as he can be a bit of a warrior. It's a different scenario, but I used that a lot more this year when we went on holiday, and she did settle much quicker than she has done previously. And also I did use the Dorwest Skull Cap and Valerian with Oscar, and that did help him. The other thing that I think, again, before I was involved in anything to do with kind of like in a dog training world, was I was quite anti the idea of medication. I've seen some dogs that have made, some dogs it hasn't made a difference, but I've seen some dogs that have massively improved emotionally medication. And I think, again, if your dog is really stressed, talking to your vet ahead of time and getting the right medication can make a difference to how they experience those situations. And that's, I think I would definitely recommend talking to your vet if your dog is going to be in a very bad state. You can't leave the house, you can't kind of go on holiday and avoid the situation. Definitely chatting to your vet is I'd recommend.
Exactly. Yeah. No, 100%. And then just trying to think, there's what else do we do?
In the music side of things, I wanted to talk.
I was just going to say that. Oh dear, how funny. Well, you know, as I'm snuggling on my bed with my doggies, yeah, I mean, I'm either watching a movie that has got happy thoughts, or loud noise in itself, so it kind of drowns it out. So, you know, our emotions transfer onto our dogs, don't they? So if you're feeling happy and positive and engaged, then, you know, you're less likely to, you know, be passing any emotions on. So yeah, but there's some really good playlists on Spotify. Other music players are available. We know that Classic FM does a whole night on fireworks for dogs, which I just think is brilliant. So there's loads of you know, music stations that you can tap into that you know, support dogs with the right type of music. And I couldn't remember this, but in the last live we talked about drums, and that being
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I haven't started drumming myself, so the dog, I think I'll definitely download that one. I think that would be awful.
Yeah, yeah. So there's, like you say, there's a few different places. So like Classic FM do the music. There's is it Taquito drums?
Yes, that's it. Well done.
Yeah. I never know if I'm pronouncing that quite right. And there's they say that sometimes like the drumming can offset the sound of the fireworks. I've got one of the dogs that I work with, he loves reggae. Kind of for him, reggae music. But again, I suppose one of the things that I used to do is I'd never played like spa music in the house, and the moment I hear fireworks, I'm like, smart speaker, play fire. play spa music,
Yeah.
play this. And it's something that I never really did. So the dogs are going, oh gosh, okay, we've got spa music. It's definitely going to be fireworks tonight. And kind of, I'm laughing about it now, but I know that's what I did. And so I think if you know that your dog's going to love reggae music, you want to work with the drum music, you want to work with that spa music, is setting that up now. So playing games with your dogs. If your dog's like the enrichment we've talked about, the licky mats, the snuffle mats, things that they find really relaxing and calming. If we can have relaxing, calming music on while they're doing that, they're getting a positive associations with that sound, which is going to help when they're feeling worried, because they're already going to have that emotional state that sound means that. Whereas my dogs would be like, oh, Claire's playing that music again. Really good.
Exactly. We could put some links in, can't we?
Yes. And like you say, when we go back to what we were saying at the beginning about our emotional state can affect it. So if you reassure your dog, you're not going to make the situation worse. To your dogs, these noises are really, really scary. They're kind of in a survival mode. They're in that like fight, flight, freeze mode where they're going, I need to survive because this noise is really scaring me. So us reassuring them is not going to make the problem worse. You're not going to train it, because once they're in that point where their brain is not thinking, they're just having an emotional response, the training's not happening. It's just a coping mechanism. But what they can pick up, what Sarah was saying, is what they can pick up on is if we are panicking, which, as I say, I saw Oscar in that state, and I fully appreciate it's so easy to kind of really feel empathetic to what they're going through and get quite stressed and worried about it. But if we can remain calm and confident, that can help them as well. So being there for them, but being that sort of supportive arm rather than kind of panic and go along with the situation. So that being said, if their drum music, if reggae is not your thing, if spa music's not your thing, if you can go and put a film on that's going to make you really happy and feel good, whatever genre works for you. I know some of my customers, it's like some people are like Disney, some people are a comedy, some of my customers would be like, that's awful for me, Claire, I want a horror. If I put horror on that, I'm in a state that would not be for me. But finding something that really works for you to help you feel more confident with the situation can be really important as well. So sometimes not putting that spa music on, not putting classic AFM on, but putting a film on really loudly that works for you is really, really good to do to help you feel stable with it. The one thing I would recommend if you're doing that, this is often we put something on telly that we enjoy, and normally something with the fighting scenes and things like that, because like battle scenes and all that, because it tends to drown out the noises and the dogs are okay with it. But as humans now and with tellies, we tend to pause everything. So we put in this little pause. So it's making sure if you are pausing it because you need a toilet break, a tea break, or whatever's going on, is making sure that we like kick the music in at the same time. So as soon as the telly's paused, it's like saying to the smart speaker, play this music really loud. And then we come back and it's like, stop the music, start the telly, and kind of having that overlap. So we're not having these like silent periods as well. Can be really helpful, but doing that is what's important, and tapping into what your dog needs to make them feel really comfortable is definitely key. And we mentioned it earlier that the sight, especially for the sighthounds, the sight of the big sparkly things in the sky can be triggering as well. So having those curtains closed, having the blinds closed can help from that sort of situation as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Right, I think we've done it pretty much everything on fireworks. I appreciate we normally try and go for about half an hour, don't we? 40 minutes with these, and so we've got a few minutes left if we want to squeeze in some fun games to play with.
Just before we do Halloween, I've got another one on fireworks. Sorry.
Oh, have you?
I have a little one that's sneaking. One thing that I think we both talk about a lot I do in my courses and my training is about kind of trigger stacking with dogs, and how things that are going on around firework nights can make a difference. So for example, I wouldn't book if my dogs don't like the vets, I wouldn't book for them to go and have like their booster jabs on November the 4th and then fireworks on November the 5th. I know fireworks go on. but kind of considering what we're doing with their dogs around these stressful events. So giving them time to, if they are getting worried, we want to give them as much support as we can for them to decompress, for them to bring that emotional state down, especially as fireworks don't happen for one night. They do tend to go on for various nights. So looking at, we've talked in enrichment about the sniffy walks, we've talked about enrichment games, we've talked about calming. I wouldn't necessarily go, right, let's pick a brand new route to walk, let's go somewhere really new and exciting. It's like, let's pick a walk that you feel really comfortable with, that you love, where you can go and sniff, we can calm, we can both relax, we can, that is really important. So considering what we're doing in between the stages of fireworks is almost as important as what we're doing on those nights themselves as well. Giving your dogs lots of support in between.
Totally agree. Well interrupted.
Now you go Halloween. Sorry. Let's get that one in.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I don't really do very. I mean, your voice inspired me because you do classes, and so you've just got some really great fun games to do, you know, and so you know, something, you know, I think you call it sausage bobbing or something, don't you? Which
sausage bobbing is like hugely popular at greyhound events across the country. Generally, if you go to a greyhound event, sausage bobbing's been in there for years and years and years.
Okay.
So that's really popular. We did kind of bobbing for salmon pate, and some people were telling me the other day when they were working on trying to get their dogs in paddling pools that sprats float.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, I'm going to consider that for Halloween.
You'll have to do a video for us, Claire, so we can share it of doing some apple bombing. Because, yeah, I mean, you know, they will get treats out of a puddle, etc. But I may be just a greyhound thing. I'm not sure, but we'll have to see. If any of them are watching this live and you want to try sprats or sausage or anything that might float that you think your dogs might be interested in, maybe we'll see some videos from people.
I just do like really shallow water because I don't want them to have the stress of like if they're not comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's working with the right dog. Some of them like, I'm not sticking my head in water, that's just too much, and obviously we don't want to put them in there. I think one of the things for me with Halloween is I do have theme sessions with my classes throughout the year, and we have various things, traffics and Valentine's, and Halloween is one, and we have all sorts of things with pumpkins and witches' hats and all sorts of bits and pieces and broomsticks, and we make fun of it. But one thing that I seem to be seeing more and more is dogs being like dressed up and Instagrammed. And if you can read dogs' body language, they're like, these dogs are just not happy with the whole being dressed up. So I think a lot of the sighthounds are used to wearing coats, they're used to wearing like snooze, they're used to collars, and I'm all for like Halloweening that up and putting the stuff on for Christmas and all of that sort of stuff, but not putting things on them where they're going to feel really uncomfortable and stressed with it. And you see that so much, unfortunately, around Halloween. So just being really mindful of dressing them up, and if they're going to be too hot in certain situations, like sticking Halloween coats on them in a hot house where we've got the heating whacked up, is not necessarily what's going to be right. Whippets, I think, would some of the Salukis would love to be warm, but it's considering safety as well from that point of view.
No, totally.
And again, we talked a little bit about kind of being mindful of those parcels and deliveries and things like that with fireworks going on. But it's being aware of, I know some people coming to the door can be quite triggering for some dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my two, you know, ever since COVID, the door has always been a challenge for them since, because we just stopped having people. And so, yeah, you know, having a safe place for them to go to, having a action for them to do, you know, except, you know, if your dog is announcing that somebody's coming to the door, that's okay. They're just communicating, they're doing their job, but, you know, giving them something, you know, as an alternative can really help them, you know, and, you know, from that perspective. And, you know, do you hide with all the lights off because you haven't got children? You know, I have been guilty of that in the past many times ago. So I don't, nobody comes to my door when I did have a dog that maybe wasn't quite so social in that sense. So, you know, we've all done some tricks in the past that we may think, okay, we'll prevent the situation happening. Yeah. But, you know, there are other ways of doing it. And yeah, it's, I think, isn't it supposed to be, if you've got a pumpkin in your window, that means you're open to visitors.
I think it's something like the houses that are dressed up are fair game. The ones that aren't, leave alone. I know not everybody sticks to that rule, but I think that's generally the rule. So if you don't want it up, or you know, I know people, when I've talked to them in the past about having things like just about, you know, saying don't disturb me, but open the porch door, there's treats inside, don't knock, and things like that as well that they've done. So be mindful of that. And I think the other thing to be aware, if you are going out trick and treating, some people take their dogs. Some dogs are going to be comfortable with that situation. Some dogs with lots of children dressed up running around and lots of noises, and they may not be entirely comfortable with that. So again, working out whether your dog is better to go in that situation or whether they're going to be happier at home during that time.
No, I think that's very valid.
And we both love pumpkin as a treat for our dogs. Pureed pumpkin. Carolina, when we did the nutrition talk, she talks about how good pureed pumpkin is for the dogs. It can be really good for those upset stomachs and in both the loose stools and constipation. So pureed pumpkin is something I keep in stock and go throughout the year. So you can use it on licky mats and all sorts of things, can't you? If it's obviously.
I have a confession. I've still got pumpkin that I chopped up from last year
for your dog.
Because I went and bought them all afterwards because they were like 10p. So I boiled up loads and made puree that I then put in ice cube trays so that I could then defrost them into my squeezy tubes for licking for trading. Then I've got whole bits of pumpkin that I need to boil up, etc. And I've still got them. So my dogs currently are getting quite a bit of pumpkin to supplement their diet. Because and my other half's like, "You're not buying more." I went, "Well, of course I am. You know, you can't keep it in the freezer forever." So yeah, if you see me staggering down a high street in Reading and I've got about 7 or 8 pumpkins, now you know why.
But yeah, so you can use your pumpkin to make some great dog treats, and I think there's lots of things. Obviously, check for anything that's toxic, but there's some great recipes online, isn't there, for kind of using up your pumpkins after you've carved them so beautifully to
definitely
in an enrichment capacity to help your dog. So I think that was it. I think that was everything I wanted to cover. We were just going to mention that we've got Danny from Tugganoff coming on for a live in November, which we're very excited about, talking about enrichment, talking about games. They've got some fantastic products. Sarah and I are both partners, and we're very passionate about their products. We use them both personally a lot with our own dogs and in training capacity. So we've got them come in. And I did have a really organised member come to me and start talking to me about the Christmas word. I know it's a little bit early for that, but they were like, if we were considering getting a tree with this particular dog, what would we need to do? And we're obviously going to do, we are going to do a Christmas live a lot nearer December. But in the meantime, if you are going to change the layout of your lounge, for example, to put a Christmas tree up, you're going to start moving the dog beds, considering all of that in advance is worth doing. But we will have lots of hints and tips for you in early December for that.
Exactly. And then so this video will stay on Facebook and we'll go on YouTube, and then there's a blog on my site that just talks about fireworks specifically. So if you want to read some information as well as hear about what Hilaire and I have talked about tonight, then feel free to go, and I'll put the link in the chat.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. Lovely chatting. And I will...
Lovely evening, everybody.
Take care. Bye.